Well, we'll stay in the US for an important development in the police killing of an African-American woman, Breonna Taylor. Her family's reached a $12 million settlement with the city of Louisville in Kentucky. Well, this is Breonna Taylor. She was a 26-year-old emergency medical technician, and in March she was shot 8 times after police entered her home in the middle of the night under what's called a no-knock warrant. Her boyfriend's a licensed gun owner, and he exchanged fire with the officers thinking they were burglars. In fact, they were on a drug raid and were looking for a suspect who didn't live at the house. No drugs were found at the property. Subsequently, one of the officers has been fired. 2 others were placed on leave. No one has been charged with any crimes relating to what happened. Here's the mayor of Louisville.
Breonna was loved. I cannot begin to imagine Ms. Palmer's pain, and I'm deeply, deeply sorry for Breonna's death. While we await a decision from Attorney General Daniel Cameron on whether or not charges will be filed in this case, my administration is not waiting to move ahead with needed reforms to prevent a tragedy like this from ever happening again.
So as you heard there, a series of police reforms will be part of this settlement. A commanding officer, for example, will now have to be approving of search warrants before they go to a judge. Here's a lawyer for Ms. Taylor's estate.
The comprehensive reform that the Louisville Metro Council and Mayor Fischer put forth is equally important, because this is about setting a precedence.
Well, as I'm sure you know, Breonna Taylor's killing gained global attention following the death of George Floyd in police custody in May. Her picture was used on the front of magazines, and murals of her sprang up all over the US. Her mother also spoke at this press conference. Let's hear some of what she said.
As significant as today is, it's only the beginning of getting full justice for Breonna. We must not lose focus on what the real job is. And with that being said, it's time to move forward with the criminal charges, because she deserves that and much more. Her beautiful spirit and personality is working through all of us on the ground. So please continue to say her name.
Well, as you can hear, there is much more to come in the investigations into her death. Larry Madowo in Washington explains.
It is important to note that this is a settlement in the case brought on by the family. However, there's still an investigation being carried out by the Kentucky Attorney General in this case, and he may in fact prefer charges against the officers. They're still criminally being investigated, and we understand that a grand jury has now been set up to look into those charges, and an announcement might be imminent. At the same time, the FBI's Civil Rights Division is also investigating this if Breonna Taylor's civil rights were violated in this case. So this is just one part of a much larger case.
And Larry, having met the family last week, do you think this settlement as an interim agreement will satisfy their expectations?
It's hard to tell. It's a complicated case, right? Because they lost a family member. She was 26. She had dreams of becoming a nurse. She was much beloved by the family and the friends that knew her. And the aunt, Bianca Austin, who I spoke to last week, told me, we feel like we're being lied to. We feel like there's a lot of a cover-up happening here. It began with, when this first happened, the police narrative focused on an officer who was injured. They call it a police-involved shooting, and they centered this narrative around the police officer who was injured, not Breonna Taylor, who was killed. And when an incident report was released, it didn't list any injuries on Breonna Taylor. It said none. The rest of it was blank, and the family has raised concern with that. They've been upset about how long this is taking, and the mayor's office has been under pressure to make sure that they are making sure that the family feels like something is being done, but also trying to deal with the fallout from this, which has affected the entire community.